What's up, guys? Today we have got to talk about Total War and its disappearing features. We are going to be using Total War Pharaoh as our example here, but I mean, a lot of this stuff is not necessarily exclusive to Pharaoh, but there's a disturbing trend with the Total War games, and we seem to be losing a lot of core features. Now, when I went into this game, I had very low expectations. I was pleasantly surprised with a few features that have been added. We'll cover some of that in a future video, but today I just want to focus on some of the things that I noticed are missing. And I played a lot of Total War, but I would say I'm more of a casual Total War player, even though I've been playing for quite some time. But my approach is a lot more casual than many of the other content creators out there. But in any case, let's get into some of the things that I have noticed that are missing. So the first thing in particular, the obvious: naval battles. No naval battles, despite the fact that we are playing a campaign that is really defined by the Nile River in a lot of ways, especially if we're playing as the Egyptian factions. There's no naval battles, and one of the key battles of the era, as it's described historically, and whether or not this is accurate is somewhat debatable, but the invading sea peoples were defeated in a naval battle, and maybe we'll go into detail and cover that at some point. But essentially what happened was the Egyptians blocked the mouth of the Nile with their fleet, and in the meantime had placed their army in the long grass. And once the invading sea people's army was blocked, they were able to ambush them with arrows and whatnot, and that's how they were able to save Egypt and defeat the invaders. But we don't get any of that in this, which is really disappointing. I am a big advocate for naval battles. I think it's probably the biggest feature that we have lacking in Total War nowadays. I mean, the last time we had naval warfare was really Total War Attila. I think it was present in Thrones of Britannia, but there weren't proper navies in Thrones of Britannia. And just imagine even for the fantasy Total War players out there with Warhammer, just how incredible naval battles could have potentially been for Total War Warhammer. And so, yeah, I understand it's a major feature, but we're talking about a AAA gaming studio with a lot of resources, and when you've got the name Creative Assembly, where's the creativity? And not to mention that Total War, I would say that Total War includes naval warfare. Anyway, I ranted about that for probably longer than I should have. Let's move on to the next aspect that's missing. So we've got no population. We have in its place this workforce bar, and it's a very simplified sort of system. It's you're required to use workforce to build buildings, and once you have a high workforce, it increases your recruitment slots. So population is represented in that way. However, there are just so many more things that you can do with a proper population mechanic, and it's something that you can flesh out and develop further from game to game, I would think. But population allows you to, divide it by class, you could divide it by culture, you could divide it by religion, and what units you can recruit can be based on population, what effects it has for your economy, for your general happiness. There's just so many more nuances to having a proper population mechanic, and it's just a real shame that it's something that's been stripped from Total War in general. Right, moving on. Well, this is a big one for Pharaoh in particular, and I'm actually quite shocked that it's not in the game. Is we have no family tree. So we're playing as one of the history's most renowned and celebrated civilization, where it was defined by its lasting dynasties. We cannot make our own dynasty. We do have this Egyptian court system, which I haven't really gotten into a whole lot myself. I think it has some potential, but it seems like a very, I don't know, gimmicky sort of, it has a gimmicky sort of feel to it. I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting if they added something like this to a game where you could actually go into the court and interact with the characters, sort of like an RPG element type thing, where you could actually have conversations with people and set up these different plots and things like that. But I mean, something like that would require a lot of work and a lot of, I'm just brainstorming here, but this just seems, very sort of rudimentary and sort of bare bones. But I mean, at least it's here. But I mean, the big thing is the fact that there's no family tree. I don't know. It's mind blowing to me. I know that family trees haven't been all that complex in Total Wars necessarily. However, there's so much that you can do with that. Maybe family members get, special abilities or something like that, or just the feeling that you get from creating your own family dynasty. It's a lot more rewarding. And playing this game, we are playing as one of the faction leaders, and the faction leader is essentially immortal, and it's just really strange to me, really, really bizarre, very, very odd choice in that respect. But I mean, this is the sort of Warhammer effect. I believe we saw this in Troy as well, where there's no family tree. Very strange sort of stuff. All right, this is another big one for me, and it is no agents, as far as I know. I mean, maybe I haven't played this a ton, maybe 25, 30, I think 25 hours I've sunk into it. So I haven't been playing a ton of it, but I've played enough to feel like I would have figured out how to recruit agents by now if they were available. But it doesn't seem that we have any actual agents in the game, and the agents are really like, I don't even know what the best way to describe it is, but they're a really important aspect of Total War. The abilities that you gain from the agents allows you to scout, manipulate enemy armies, various diplomatic options. It's just, there's so much you can do with the agents in terms of possibility that the developers could add to the game. It just gives you a much better strategic element. Now we do have, if we want to spy on our enemies, for example, if we take a look here, let's take a look at this faction. So what we can do is we can embed an informant for 200 gold, and it's like, it's such a basic feature. We pay 200 gold, and for 10 turns we can see that factions area. It's an instant effect. It's even dumbed down from what we had in 3K, where there was actually, you could embed informants or whatever, and there were a lot more options as to what you could do with that. It was somewhat interesting, but the old school agents they're just, like I said, a very important aspect of Total War, and it just really doesn't feel like Total War without it. So yeah, why the decision was made to get rid of them, I don't know. Je ne sais pas. Moving on. Right, so yeah, the next thing I want to talk about, this is a minor thing. It was pointed out by one of my viewers during a live stream, and that is the armies don't have traditions, which is sad to see, because a lot of times as you go through a campaign, you gain that attachment to your armies, and you can grant different abilities and different skills and things like that by having the army traditions. And for those, you know, there's a lot of players out there that really role play and really get into their campaigns, name all of their units and have special units particular to an army legion, and just losing that army traditions. It's one of the smaller aspects, but it's definitely something that I think will be missed by a lot of players. Anyway, let's continue on here. We've got a few more things to point out.
Wet and wisdom.
All right, the next thing I want to cover is unit formations and stances. Now, this is something that is present. We do have a little bit of ability to do different formations and different with giving ground, and you know, depending on the units.
Move back slowly.
For example, these spears, we could do spear wall.
In short order.
The archers have aim true, rapid fire, and things like that. However, it's really the bare minimum, and I feel like in a game where you're not going to have a lot of unit variety, you really need to pronounce the differences between the unit types, between spears and axemen, between archers and slingers. And this is something that we'll probably get into in future videos, and just do some proper analysis of the units and how they're functioning on the battlefield, because I think it's something that certainly gets neglected a lot in the modern Total Wars, and this is an issue that doesn't just apply to Total Warfare. This is an issue that applies to the modern Total Wars a lot in general, but just it seems like we've just sort of got the bare minimum in terms of what abilities are available, and the same goes for, this is the last thing that I'm going to cover, and that's the actual general abilities as well, where we don't have a whole lot of different abilities or commands or things like that. It just seems really weak. And again, in a game where you don't have the crutch of flashy spells and advanced weaponry and things like that, you want to make it interesting for the player and give them the option to use special abilities by the generals and things like that. It just again, this is something that hopefully we'll get into in more detail in the future, because I think it's definitely something that needs to be talked about more by the community and by Total War players in general, because it's really important the way that things function on the battlefield. It shouldn't just be a mashing together of stats. It really shouldn't. The stats are obviously important, however, how the units actually function on the battlefield mechanically is just as important, I think, as the statistics that is representing that stuff. But anyway, I've rambled on for quite a while, and I'm sure there's a number of things that I've missed that I didn't cover in this video. What are some of the features in Total War Pharaoh that you've noticed are missing that you would have liked to seen? And what are some of the features in other Total Wars that are missing that you would like to see? What's the trajectory for the series? Because it's, I don't know, it just seems that these games continually keep getting dumbed down more and more, and that, you know, I know there's a lot of, you know, there's a small vocal community of Total War players out there who've been harping on this for a really long time, but I think it's becoming ever present or more noticeable in some of these future Total War games, or in some of these modern Total War games. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm interested to hear your comments, and we'll cover some more of this. We'll get into this in a bit more detail. Thank you very much for watching, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Ragnarok out.